Okay, guys, welcome back. So, this episode, I'm going to relate to you my first experience. And I think what's important about this one is that a lot of folks can relate to, um, depending on what you've seen and what you experienced, or let's say what level or what type of experience. Um, you can relate a lot to this. This is, the truth is like anything you experience, anything in life that you experience um, that's odd or traumatic, and you want others to hear about it. Maybe not necessarily. Let's see here. Not necessarily for them to know about it or justify it or to get some reaction or something from it, but more so just a plain simple matter of talking about it, just kind of getting it out of your system. Um, and that's one of the main reasons why I created this channel for folks that experience some things and they don't have anybody to relate to. A lot of times, unfortunately, in America, it is such a strong culturally. Well, that's not true. It's many cultures across the planet, due to their culture and their religions and or philosophies. Um, there's not much room without ridicule or worse for others to discuss certain traumas or events. Um, so, for example, a lot of times you don't have or don't want to go to family, friends, etc., within your own personal circle, and then you may reach out or try to reach out to folks like MUFON or some paranormal investigators, um, and they have made, perhaps they've been so successful, they with such a large audience, they're not really even picking up on you. So, um, so that's why, again, I've one of the reasons we wanted to create this channel so that you can feel safe and comfortable here to discuss what you've seen. Eventually, once I start to get enough followers and enough folks want to discuss it, we'll start to collect and put together a private group. We can do private Zoom sessions or, for discussions. And meanwhile, anything that you want to relate to and talk about on comments or email me at BOBS paranormal at gmail.com. I certainly appreciate it and I will respond to you. Give me a little time. Okay, so if you're into numerology, some quite fascinating things. Um, Normally, it's not something that would have been on my radar like a big deal, but because of all my weird things that have happened on very, let's say, interesting times and dates, I soon put together a pattern. So if you're into numerology and you want to have fun with this particular event, which started many events, um, was on a Friday the 13th, 1990 at 11 p.m. Okay, so the other events, just for discussion, the other events that occurred to me were in 2004, let's see, 2004, um, Friday 13th at 11 a.m. And then the other one was, I'm sorry, I don't remember the year. It was around 2016, 17, somewhere around there. And that was interestingly 4th of July at 11 p.m. And I'll discuss that one at the next video. Okay, so this one again, Friday 13th, 11 p.m. 1990. My last year at LSU. And what's common at the time for me, I was in scouts for a long time. Perhaps some of you can relate to that. I had been camping, I don't know, hundreds, maybe 1,000 times. I don't know. Hundreds and hundreds of times over many years. I was a Boy Scout in South Louisiana. Then I was an assistant scoutmaster for a little bit in Miami, Florida, and North Carolina. And but prior to that, this was back in Baton Rouge in 1990, and this took place at the local scout camp in which is in Clinton, Louisiana, which is roughly an hour drive north of Baton Rouge. Okay. So probably not for a lot of folks, but in some cases, maybe you can relate. So perhaps you have, if you do a lot of camping, outdoor activities, whether that's surfing, bike riding, hiking, camping, whatever, perhaps you have friends or family or your family or your spouse where you do it a lot. And if so, your things are packed and ready to go, so you can go on a moment's notice and just take off. One such example that we see now are these vehicles that are modified and set up for camping. So you'll see trucks and Jeeps that have this camping hardtop camping tent on the top. It's a permanent slash permanent fixture. Where with gas shocks, it just opens up and closes instantly like that. And then they'll have a lot of them will have some built out walls and or storage space, so that literally their entire outdoor camping experience is ready to go. All they need to do is get some fresh food and clothing, and they literally can be gone in like 30 minutes. So for this example, that's kind of what I was at. This was prior to the internet, prior to cell phones, etc., and prior to these fully function modified trucks in that sense, although we had our own type. But in this case, I had there was a fellow scoutmaster, Ron, who was well known in the area, and he had several friends that he would always go camping and hiking with, and I was one of them. And so on any given moment's notice, we would call each other and be like, "Hey, you want to go camping on a Friday afternoon?" Let's say it was 4 o'clock. And say, "Yeah, sure." And literally within an hour, I would be over at his house, which was on the way to the scout camp, and we'd be, taking off from there. Boom, gone. So I constantly had a backpack packed with all of the essentials. And as I mentioned, all I had to do was grab some current clothing and current food and gone, literally in less than 10 minutes. So on this evening, that was what we did. One of us called one of the other and said, "Hey, you want to go camping? Sure, let's go." So we get up to the scout camp um, around 7, 8 o'clock. And at the front of the camp is at the entrance is also the camp ranger. This guy, his name is Ovid. I don't know if that was a nickname or first or last name. To tell you the truth, I can look it up, but we call him Ovid. Just by happenstance, he was also Cajun French. Ron was also Cajun French, and and they were both more the same age, roughly 20, 30 year my senior. And so Ron was also Ron, like me, was in the scout program for a long time. Ovid was there as scout ranger for a long time, him and his family. So Ron was, real good friends with Ovid and his family. So when we came in, we stopped there and visited. We had dinner and some good conversations and so forth for a couple hours. And then finally, we said, okay, we're going to go ahead and head out. So this camp kind of paints you a picture. This property is an amazing, beautiful property donated by a certain family to the Scout organization, either in the early 1900s or late 1800s. And I keep forgetting, it's either 1,600 or 3,200 acres. I forget, but it's huge. And there are three principal primary lakes on the property. So if you will, imagine a straight line, one here, one in the middle, and one in the back. The two in the back, forgive me, I forget which one's which. One of them's called Tie Gator, and the other one's called McGee. I believe the middle is Tie Gator, and the last one is McGee. Forgive me if I'm wrong, if any of you local folks are watching this, but that's what I'm going to go with. So understand, I know, like a lot of scouts, I know the Avondale pretty good. I've been there for, let's see, at this time, 10 to 12 years. Been going there hundreds of times as a younger scout, camping during, for summer camp outs, and then many, many times as our individual troop would go there and spend the night. Also, in my later years, I was working on camp staff. So I would live there for the whole summer in a tent. And so what I'm prefacing to say is, out of the prior 10 to 12 years, including living in a tent during the summer there for a couple of times, I don't recall, I'm not consciously aware of any odd paranormal or UFO type activity. I've never personally seen it, and I've never heard of it that I recall. So I don't know. I could have been abducted hundreds of times. I don't know. Especially since where I was, where my tent was during summer camp, I was kind of off on my own, away pretty far from the nearest person. and a lot of times by myself. So, it would have been a perfect opportunity if they wanted to come get me. But again, that's why I say I am not consciously aware of anything prior to this date in 1990. Okay, so Ron and I end up at the middle lake, and I'm saying it's Tigator. Forgive me if I'm wrong. So we end up at the middle lake, and I'm trying to paint you a picture. On this lake, on the bank here, okay, it's a real pretty lake, and on the left side there is a more or less north and south direction. There is a built-up levee. Okay, so it's almost like a wall, and it's a levee road. Okay, and that road will allow you to drive back down to the next lake, so the McGee. Okay, and that lake also has a that levee built up on its end, on its left side, also in a north-south direction. Okay. On the McGee side, that the drop, the left side drop, or the other side drop from that levee road is really pretty high, pretty low, or far, however you want to say that. It's a pretty far drop. On the Tigator, the first lake we were on, that it drops not so far, and it's not that important right now. I'm just trying to explain that to you for the rest of what I'm going to tell you. But from where we were at, we're on the bank. So we're on the northern side of the banks of Lake Tigator, and that lake extends across let's say 200 yards. Okay, 2 football fields across. And it's about, for argument's sake, let's say 100 yards, 100, 150 yards to our left from where we are, which would have been to the east, and at the levee. Okay. And so we have 100% vision and a panoramic view around us. There's nothing obstructing our view, no trees or etc. So there was a couple of trees right where some pine trees, basically right where we were, 2 or 3 pine trees right where we were. We were underneath them, so we have 100% visibility outwards. Okay, and so we got there around 10:30, roughly 10:30, 10:45, and for some reason, I don't really know why, but for some reason, Ron, it was his tent, and he's busy setting up his tent. Why I'm not helping, I don't know. But I guess I was a little hungry, so I was laying down on the ground up against my backpack, flat on the ground, where I'm looking up at the stars. Okay, and I'm eating an apple, and so time goes by real quick as we're gathering some things and getting camp ready. And so right at 11 o'clock p.m., I notice and see a blinking light going across from north to south, just on the other side of the levee. So if this is representing 90 degrees, this was at maybe a 30 degrees out upwards, out in the sky. I see this light, or the better said, I see this object, this light object moving down. Now, at this point, all I see is a standard blinking green and red lights. Green and red blinking lights. Okay. To me, it looked like an airplane. Okay. A standard starboard and port green and red blinking lights. Okay. There's no noise whatsoever. This is in the wintertime. Coming off the wintertime, which is important to note, because especially out in the countryside, you can hear a noise for forever, especially in the winter. For example, some coyotes, if they're a mile away, they could sound like they're right next to you. So any planes and helicopters flying, you can hear them. But in this case, I didn't hear any noise, and at this moment, that wasn't really factored in as an issue, other than in the whole spectrum of this, I'm telling you, I didn't hear any noise. Okay. But to me, it simply looked like it was an airplane flying on over to Baton Rouge Airport. For some reason, I have no idea. I have no idea why, but I spoke up, and I made mention to Ron, and I said, hey, check out this airplane, and he's, excuse me, my sugar is getting a little low. Give me a second. Yeah, pardon me. Again, for the life of me, I don't know why I bothered to mention that. It was absolutely nothing peculiar about this object that stood out to me. Okay. Other than, and I made mention, I said, if that thing's going to Baton Rouge, don't you think, perhaps it's a little low? Now, in hindsight, almost 40 years later, I'm going to say, what? No, it was okay. It's about right. If you want to make an argument that it was a little low, okay. But it wasn't really anything to make mention of, that's for sure. But for some reason, that's what I thought at the moment. And for some unknown reason, I verbally made mention of it. Okay. So now Ron's sitting next to me, and he's looking up at it, and he's like, yeah, you may be right. And then at that point, this thing stopped in midair. Okay. And then it was going across, it stopped in midair, and then it turned, okay, towards us. It just turned. You can see the lights and so forth, so you can identify that it turned towards us. Okay. And then at this point, we're thinking helicopter, because it's the only thing that we know, that we're aware of in 1990 that can do that. Although we still don't hear any noise. And at this point, the object has transformed into a different shape of sorts. All I do know is, at this point, I don't see any blinking lights anymore. There's no headlight. There's no propellers, either by sight or sound. Um, there's no sign of a helicopter. There's no sign of an airplane. And now all it is, it's a ball. It's just a sphere, a solid ball sphere, about roughly the size of a soccer ball. Okay, and it is about um, I don't know, somewhere between a quarter and a half a, let's say a quarter mile in the air, and quarter mile uh, roughly in distance. Okay, so imagine a quarter mile up and a quarter mile out. All right, so at this point, imagine drawing a string from the top end where that was, drawing a string all the way down to us. A perfect string line down to us. And imagine putting an object like on a hook or something, like a zip line, and just zip line that thing straight down. Okay. And this thing came straight down to us in a perfect descending 20, 30-degree descending pattern, straight to us. No deviation, no swerving, no nothing, no sound, no swirling, um, no blinking lights, just a more of a whitish sphere the size of a soccer ball. And this thing came, no whirling sounds, and it came straight to us. Okay. And then it stopped about 30 yards in front of us, and let's say 30, 50 yards. No. So it was at the top, basically the height of these pine trees. So let's say uh, 50 to 100 feet. Let's see. That's I'm going to say 40 to 50 feet. 40 to 50 feet, roughly the top of these southern pines in height, and about 25 to 30 yards out from us. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is it was pretty close, and it was very close enough for us to see it. And this thing hovered and stayed there, and it was like it was watching and studying us. Okay. And I promise you, we were watching and studying it. Again, all the while, no sound, no blinking lights, no whirling, just a white sphere the size of a soccer ball, just kind of staring at us, like it was observing, studying us. Okay. So at the time, the vehicle was off, and we didn't have that many electronics. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have internet. So I can't tell you that. I can't tell you there was messing electronic interference is what I'm trying to say. I can't tell you there was any electronic interference. And I cannot also tell you that we noticed or did not notice any loss of time. I don't recall that, and I never had Ron never called me and said that he noticed it in hindsight either. Likewise, neither one of us that I know of had any recurring dreams about a possible abduction from that. If he did, he never told me. Um, and I never did. But so during this time, it's getting a little chilly here. During this time, which I don't know, could have been like 1 minute to 10 minutes. Um, it's kind of hard to say because it was like time stood still. I was frozen in utter fear, and Ron was frozen in curiosity. So, got to understand, Ron is his profession, his trade was he was a science teacher. Okay, so he was a bundle of crazy excitement, of curiosity as a scientist, and he was taking his glasses off and cleaning them, make sure they were clean, and looking, and we're talking, and we start off with a normal conversation. Do you see this? Yes, I see it. And then it was, well, just in case, you tell me what you see to verify that I'm seeing the same thing. Yes, I see this white ball of light. Okay. And then I'm hollering, let's get out of here. But at the same time, um, the one, and I've heard this from others, many, many others, and I understand. And because this was my primary driving, uh, I don't know how to relate, I don't know how to say that, but basically, the primary thing that I got out of this was that um, you are utterly, stunningly, utterly, completely helpless with obviously an advanced technology, and there's nowhere to run. I mean, you can get in the car and take off. I was thinking about running out to a massive amount of woods right near me. Um, but again, where are you going? It was total waste. And it was such a helpless, helpless feeling. Um, all the while, again, Ron maintained his sense of curiosity. That's all he was experiencing out of it. If he did experience any fear, I never heard that. He didn't act like it, and he never told me that. In fact, so as we're watching this thing, again, anywhere from a minute to 10 minutes, I think it falls somewhere between roughly 5 minutes. Then it finally turned away. It turned. Yes, that may sound odd to see how can you identify that a white sphere ball turned, but somehow you could see that, and then it cruised on at the same height, at a slow speed, straight across the lake. Okay, just a straight, uh, even keel, horizontal height across the lake, which was, let's say, 50 feet above the lake. Okay, just straight across. And then it hit, and then it got across the other side of the lake and went up over at the tree line at that edge of the woods and over the tree line. And you can see it was heading over to Lake McGee. And that was the end of that experience. And then at this point, I'm arguing with Ron. I want to get the hell out of here. I want to leave. Pack our stuff up. I'm out of here. Let's go. And Ron somehow convinced me to stay. I guess mainly because he wanted to stay and it was his car. So, and I'm an hour away from home. So I guess that was my only choice. But I wasn't happy about it. So we ended up staying. Surprisingly, I did sleep. Um, we woke up in the morning, and we ended up hiking along the other side of um, the lake a little bit, and kind of looking around, and we didn't see anything. Um, and then on the way out, we packed up. On the way out, we went back to the ranger camp, to Ovid. We talked to him a little bit, and asked if he had seen anything or heard anything. He did not. And then we made it into town. It's a small town, very small town. Um, they have two, maybe an actual red stoplight now, and then another stoplight down the road. That's it. So it's not even a town, it's a village, really, if you get right down to it. Let's call it a town. So it was very common for all the scouts coming in and out to stop, or hunters, and stop and get meals at the 2 or 3 restaurants and stuff. We're used to that, and the town folk are used to that. And so we started asking around if folks were used to having seen other things. Um, Surprisingly, a lot of them said yes. One of them, one guy told us about an event. He said back in the 70s or 80s, 70s or 80s, um, he was hunting with his uncle and a couple other folks, and his uncle just got back from Vietnam, and so meaning that this guy was hardened U.S. Combat veteran, having lived in the jungles of Vietnam for his time, and so basically he wasn't really afraid of anything. Um, in this area, you'll see this out west. You don't see it in Baton Rouge at all, but up in northern Clinton, the land gets hilly. I mean, in Clinton, north of Baton Rouge, it gets hilly, and it's common to see creek beds, small creek beds that are carnivorous, I guess. Um, I don't know how you want to say that. So they're widened, and they're with like cave. Uh, Maybe that's not the best explanation, but the walls are, has erosion. Okay, like it's all eroded down, and you can have walls that are 3 to 10 foot high. Okay, so it's almost like walking through a cavern. I guess that's the way to say it, with the small creek bed. Okay, and so apparently it was common for the town folk to go in there and go hunt during daytime or nighttime, and that's what they were doing. And he says that um, there was, in the middle of the night, some sort of flying object that had lights in front of it, and was projecting those lights against the walls as they were navigating those curves. I don't recall if he said they could hear it or not, but he said they could see it coming towards them, based on the lights reflecting on the walls, and a little bit outside above the walls out into the open sky. He says it came on them pretty fast, and as soon as it got to them, though, it all instantly, like, cloaked, if you will, and was invisible. And he was saying that it was completely unexplainable to them, and he said he had never seen his uncle scared prior to that. Um, when we got home, um, I don't necessarily like to just tell you some of these things, especially in public, but I will, because what I want to do is let my goal is to let a lot of folks know that I can be relatable to your situation. Okay. So I'm going to tell you what happened to me. So when I first got home, um, I didn't really want to say anything, but I was totally freaked out. I was. Um, and and again, this whole sense of helplessness that there is advanced technology out there, and they can come get us at any time and place. And that notion really shook me. Now, I may have had experiences with these beings or whatever my whole entire life. I don't know. There's some things that make me think that that's true, but I don't know for sure. Um, and maybe all that culmination of that during this event triggered a lot, leading to my actions. I don't know. But what I did was, again, this may sound silly to you. I was uh, say 21, roughly 21 years old at the time. And I went home. When I got home, I closed my window, make sure my windows are closed and locked, curtains closed, curtains or shutters, whatever I had. And I literally would sleep under the bed is to get as much security uh, as I could mentally and or physically feel that I have a barrier. And I did that for a long time, um, maybe a couple of months. But then from there, it was years that prior to me being able to um, really being able to go out at night. Um, I enjoyed hiking at night. Um, and, but even going to the grocery store or something at night, it was hard for me to not constantly look up behind me, make sure nothing was coming at me. Um, that really took a long time for me to get over that, I have to admit. Um, and okay, so like a week or two after this event, we had a thought to go to the scout office in Baton Rouge, and we said, hey, look, we had an experience on this weekend, and we wanted to see, can we get a hold of anybody that was at scout camp at Lake McGee during this weekend, if they had experienced anything. And we'd like to get a hold of them and see, investigate that. And so eventually we found that there was a former scout and his wife and family were actually there on Lake McGee, then the other lake. They had a camper, and he let us know that although they did not see the light or anything else, they were able to confirm that during the time period, excuse me, that we were describing, which would have been at this time, let's say 11:15, roughly. That there was a lot, that he was camped. First of all, he verified that he was camped exactly where this thing was going, and where he could have seen it, and the time frame. Having he said his dogs, he had a couple dogs, and they were freaking out at this time frame. And he let them out the camper to look around, couldn't see anything or whatever. And that was the extent of his experience. But so he could only verify that he was in that path at that time, and they know something was going on or went on, but that's it. So the second part of this story was around 1992. And I will tell you that as part 2 on the next video. All right, so thank you. Please, we're trying to grow this channel like anybody else and help be available for everybody. So please subscribe, please like if you like this video, and please feel free to comment. Anything disrespectful, etc., will be deleted. But if you want to reach out to us, let us know. Thank you.